Question number 9, the Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Defence. What rules of engagement, if any, has the government set for the New Zealand Defence Force personnel operating in Iraq if they come under attack?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Defence, rules of engagement are currently being finalised. It is a long-standing practice that we do not release rules of engagement, as that would provide a level of operational detail that could endanger the safety of personnel.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Honourable Phil Goff.
Was the Minister's statement on Radio Live yesterday that if there were assailants outside the camp wire, quote, "we're not going to say, whoops, can't go after them because the wire's there," end quote, consistent with the government's position and the rules of engagement?
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister, it was a general statement. As I've said, however, rules of engagement for specific missions are classified as they detail the extent of force, including lethal force, that may be used, and for that reason they are not disclosed.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Phil Goff.
Why did that so-called general statement totally contradict the Prime Minister's assurance at his post-Cabinet press conference on Monday that there's no way that New Zealand troops would go outside the wire at Camp Taiji, stating that even, quote, if there's some fight down the road, they couldn't go out and assist? How are those two statements lining up with each other? They totally contradict each other.
On behalf of the
Honourable Chris
On behalf
Finlayson.
of the Minister, I actually didn't hear the specific answer. I'm sure the Minister of Defence in his customary way was trying to be helpful. I have said, however, what the rules of engagement are and what release of the detail means. I repeat that and repeat it.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Phil Goff.
How on earth will the Kiwi soldiers deployed into Iraq know what they are not or are allowed to do if the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defence utterly contradict each other in that way, when they're already concerned that they won't have a status of forces agreement to give them legal protection?
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Defence, they'll know very clearly what they have to do. As that member knows, as a former Minister of Defence, NZDF rules of engagements are orders of the Chief of Defence Force for the purposes of the Armed Force Discipline Act 1971.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable Phil Goff.
In the absence of a status of forces agreement, if there is a green on blue attack where the trainees turn their guns on those training them, what legal protection will there be for a Kiwi soldier who shoots a rogue Iraqi soldier in self-defence? Or will the response be, as has been suggested, that you'll simply whip him out on a diplomatic passport as if he'd committed a criminal offence?
On behalf of the Minister, actually the first part of the question before it degenerated was actually a good question, and it's a very fair one. The government will not be deploying Defence Force overseas without appropriate legal protections, and I say to that member, one doesn't have to get hung up on the title status of force agreement. It's the substance of what matters, and that's what's being worked on at the moment, and I can give that member in the House the assurance that they won't be going till that is sorted.
Order. Question number 10, Tracy Martin.
Kia ora,